Greetings, one and all. Today's topic is the issue of money, to which the American Constitution empowered Congress once upon a time to coin money and set the value thereof. And there has been some discussion on the internet recently that kind of caught my interest. This Russell Brand fellow said, when you look at money, whose picture do you see on it? Well, of course, in England and Canada, you see the Queen's picture. That's a constant reminder, according to him, that they are the ones who rule, they are the ones who own, and you use their money, and that is showing you, in effect, that voting doesn't matter, and that the Prime Minister, whatever, basically perpetuates the policies of those rulers and ruling class. So, that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about American money and that how it has evolved over the centuries. American money was initially coined around 1793. There were some earlier attempts at it, but the official kind of mint-coined stuff was around 1793. And one thing about coinage at the time is it had pretty much the same structure. It had the front and the back. They call it heads and tails. And to coin collectors, they call it the obverse and reverse. The obverse is the heads. And usually you'd see the same head, although a little bit differently on each coin. The head was the head of liberty. Like the one from the Statue of Liberty, although not always so spiky. On the first coins, liberty just had hair blowing in the wind. Later on, they added a hat. And they've added other things to it to adorn it in different ways. Some of which were quite interesting, as a matter of fact. We had, once upon a time, a dime, and there was a picture of Mercury on there, which everybody says, well, what would we have a Roman pagan god in an American coin for? The reason was that it wasn't really Hermes or Mercury. It was liberty wearing Mercury's hat. And we had an Indian penny. And you go, why did we have an Indian on the penny? Well, technically, that wasn't really an Indian. That was liberty wearing an Indian headdress. It was only in the 20th century that practice of putting liberty on the coins has changed. If it's on the coin now, it's in the word liberty, not the picture. So that was a change that came about in the 20th century. The first coin, I think, that made the jump was we call it a penny. The penny is technically a British unit of money. America decided they wanted to go metric with their money in terms of tens and hundreds and things, so we call it a cent, a hundredth of a dollar. And the initial cents had liberty on them, and then around the Civil War, they added what appeared to be an Indian, but it was actually liberty wearing an Indian headdress. And then, in 1909, the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, they started making Lincoln head pennies. And on the back, they put wheat stalks. And those, I guess that was because 1909 was the golden age of farming in America. And so it has been from 1909 till now, 2015. Not much has changed. The reverse has changed a little bit. Let's look at the nickel, the 5-cent piece. Liberty was on that until 1913. The year of the Federal Reserve. Then liberty was changed to an Indian head. And it really was an Indian head, some chief. And on the back side was the buffalo. And that was kind of a nice little coin for a while until 1938, when they put Jefferson on the nickel. And so it has been till this day in 2015. The next one came in 1932. Was it 1932? Well, in 1932, the quarter dollar, which had liberties on it, some of them just a head, but up until 1932, there was a standing liberty on that coin, and that changed over to George Washington in 1932 because it was the 200th birthday of him. And the eagle was put on the back. The dime, the 10-cent piece, was also a liberty head up until 1945. And then in 1946, they put President Roosevelt on it, probably commemorating his passing. The half-dollar piece had liberty on it until probably the 1940s or early 50s, when they put Benjamin Franklin on. Now, Benjamin Franklin, I'm not sure, he wasn't a president necessarily. He was a statesman, and the Liberty Bell was on the back. But in 1963-64, they switched it over to be President Kennedy. And now, of course, in the 2000s, they've gotten all kinds of commemoratives and things. But basically, the principle is, it looks to me as though once was money that had liberty, the picture of liberty on it, as an image of you are free and you have liberty, and you make the choice of how you want to spend your money. And then the 20th century came, and it all started to change. The money became more imperial. It had a picture of our Caesars on it, sort of. So, and then we have paper money. If you look at the $1 bill as a chief example, on the front of it you have President George Washington, and on the back of it you have the Great Seal. And I think in that case, the dollar bill is a picture of the American governance system. The front side is the president and politics and what you vote for, but the back side is what we would call the deep state. The back side is the part you don't elect, the part that never changes, the part that does everything else. And I think that's the part that reminds you that maybe your voting doesn't matter so much. In the same manner that the British money also reminds them that the king and queen, king or queen or whatever the case may be, are the ones really still in charge. So I thought I would just mention that in passing, that I've noticed that with our money, that the front side now is people, not so much liberty, and the back side is a symbol of the power. The part that you cannot change, the part you cannot vote. So, put your comments and things below about what you think about the money. And the question, okay, let's get into some controversial parts of this. You look at it, when you stamp the image on the piece of metal or imprint it on the special fabric paper, you are saying that there is the power of trade, power of commerce, and the image has with it certain aspects of it that ingrain that into you. You hold it in your hands, you look at it, it reinforces the power system. Well, nowadays we get into the internet and we get into plastic money. There's not so much of an image there anymore. Is that going to make a difference? If we go to a cashless society, will that make a difference? Because you'll no longer be reminded, because the power will then be in the cloud. So I want to mention that in passing. What aspect of power, how will they maintain the power in a cashless society without government-issued currency that actually has images that you can see in your hands and touch and feel, and it then becomes real to you. In the other world, it's just part of the web, the internet, the system, the cloud. Now, another thing that I think is interesting in a similar vein was that we have monuments that we've built. In particular, one I'm thinking of is Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore was actually, to the natives, a holy mountain. And we have carved into the mountain the images of our Caesars, 4 of them. And people go there and visit that monument all the time. And they give to it a sort of a political homage. But then they'll say how great and how patriotic this thing is. Yet, when you look at the meaning of what that monument was, the meaning is basically, we're going to stamp the image of our chiefs, of our Caesars, into the earth. And that earth will then exude the power of our empire for all to see. And in effect, stomping on the religious significance of the natives. And I'm sure the natives have probably noticed that, but they probably don't talk about it as much, at least not in regular circles. But I could just see that that might be a bone of contention, that we put images into the earth, into the stone, that reinforce the power of the empire, that are still there even when everything else in the world seems to become media and not anything tangible. So there's a couple of topics I covered in this video, so please rate and comment below and add your opinions of what you think about the topic of money and currency and government's power, and how it relates to voting and your being included in the system or excluded from the system. So, until later, we'll be seeing you.